Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are doing well, staying as healthy and safe as possible right now. My name is Henrik Bick. I'm with the communications team at the Music Business Association. Glad to welcome you all today, and also glad to welcome our host, Teri Nelson Carpenter of Real Music Werks, to intro today's session. We're excited for this roundtable conversation on the business of music for TV, ads, and film, how it's responded to the challenges of the pandemic, and what the future holds for this industry subset. But before we get started, I just have a couple of quick housekeeping notes to share with you. The first is in regards to our webinar series. The next confirmed webinar, which you'll be seeing details and a registration link for in the coming days, is set for Thursday, March 25th. It'll be hosted by TuneCore and featuring research from Media Research. It's an all too important conversation involving research around female identifying industry professionals, executives, and artists alike, who share their perspectives with media in an effort to make drastic change in removing barriers for female creators and executives in our industry in the future, looking at some of the data points of female representation in the industry as it is now, and how we can change it to improve it going forward. So again, that'll be Thursday, March 25th. Be on the lookout for more information from us on that coming soon. And you can do so by, first of all, following us on social media. We can be found at MusicBizAssoc on all channels: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I'll drop that information in the chat for anyone who wants it during the session. From there, you can find announcements from our latest events, member news updates, association news, industry analysis, trend reporting, and so much more. Beyond that, if you haven't visited musicbiz.org, our website, in recent days and months, I suggest that you do. It's where all of that content also lives, but also we have some exclusive items for the Music Biz members among us. For instance, these webinars that we're hosting on Thursdays, if you're a Music Biz member, you have access to our entire back catalog going back about 8 years now of all the content that we've shared on the webinar series. But for everyone, that is another essential place to find, again, association news and announcements on our events, member updates, and much, much more. So it's MusicBizAssoc on our socials and musicbiz.org for our website. So I will pass things off to Teri now. I want to again say thank you to our presenters for everything, for being here today, and for the exciting session we're about to have. If you have any questions for the session, feel free to drop them in the dedicated Q&A box. And if you have any chats, be sure to change your setting to panelists and attendees so that way everyone can see it. Thank you so much, and I'll pass it along to you, Teri.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here today, and I really look forward to our conversation. I do want to say that today we were supposed to welcome Tony Scudolari from Sony Pictures Television, the Senior Vice President of Music, but he got called into a meeting this morning because the studio is going to start to ramp up and bring business back. And so he absolutely was unable to come and join us. And he sends his best to everybody. And he said, this is good news. And something that I think we've all been looking forward to is business starting to reopen and getting back on track. So not to be outdone by that, our dear friend Devin Powers has kindly said he would join us today. My words are escaping me, I'm sorry. Devin, you want to click on so we can say hi? Devin is an amazing artist and composer. And Devin, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And so everybody knows who they're looking at and who's speaking.
Sure, I'll condense it. I've been a recording artist since I was a young boy, did some recordings in Los Angeles with Ainsley Dunbar from Journey. Those recordings got heard by John Entwistle from The Who. I worked with John Entwistle from The Who, did a record with him, toured. That led to a record deal for myself on Universal. And that led to me being asked to become a composer around 1998. And I've been composing for TV for 22, 23 years. And because of that, I'm a composer and a publisher, and that's sort of where I'm at now with my company, Powers Music, with over 800 TV shows to my credit.
Wonderful. Well, I think you're going to have a great conversation about the creator's perspective. And that's why we have Devin joining us today. We thought with this change in speakers, we are looking at a creator perspective through Devin, a music publisher, rights management, and supervision perspective via my position. And then Dan Butler from Paramount. Come on, come on down, as they say. Uh, Dan, would you like to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you and your background so that everybody can get to know you better?
Sure. I'm the Executive Vice President of Legal and Business Affairs for Music at Paramount Pictures for the last going on 15 years. Prior to that time, I worked at Warner Brothers Pictures, MGM, and Reicher Entertainment. I started out at the Hill, Wynn, Troup, and Meisinger law firm, and I'm a UCLA law grad and University of Texas undergrad. And all my friends in Texas have been calling, and I've been telling them, so sorry, you guys are freezing to death because it's 75 and sunny right here in California.
Oh my God.
They love to bash California, but not right now.
Yeah, the weather, definitely, definitely. So thank you, Dan, for joining us. Dan and I go way back with respect to our time at the California Copyright Conference, and we're both past presidents. And, so we've had some fun times. But somebody's asking, what's his name again? Dan Butler, Devin Powers, and Teri Nelson Carpenter. So to start off the conversation, because it is, the big elephant in the room, COVID, let's kind of go back to first quarter 2020. We're started the year business as usual, running the good race. For me, prospectively, I was literally traveling around the world the first quarter. And when COVID hit, I found myself in a hotel room in Stockholm, Sweden, attending a music conference, an international music conference, and kind of got the rude news waking up that Trump closed the borders. So having said that, I'd love to know what happened with you guys. And I'm going to start with Devin, with our creator. Devin, what happened when COVID hit? How did it affect you going from, business as usual to lockdown?
Well, we were actually out in Nashville in February looking for a new place that had a big enough house for us and a studio. So from a personal perspective, I was like real excited to move to Nashville. It was going to be cool. We were going to keep an HQ in LA and move out there. And we took the offer off the house, came back to LA, and started to realize that most of our TV productions, because I compose and I create, libraries for different companies, most of my productions were just like at a freaking grind because all the editors needed to be moved from the in-house location at the executive offices, HQ offices. There was a huge funneling of everybody working from home. So for me, the biggest shift was shows getting shut down, and the ones that were in production, I was scrambling to get a source audio site for all that content so those editors could just go up and grab it. So that was like the first thing that I noticed that happened for me.
Wow. It felt like production came to a screeching halt, and the opportunities for licensing kind of went silent there for a while. From our perspective, Dan, how was it? You're on the lot, and so what happened?
Well, it was in March, and they said we're gonna shut down. They kind of gave us a tiny little bit on a Thursday. They said, okay, we want everybody to go home and take enough stuff with you to plan on working from home for the next 2 weeks at least. And so we thought, oh, 2 weeks. So I grabbed a couple of file folders. I grabbed a couple of boxes, and I thought, this won't be as bad as all that. And we're lucky on the lot because it's an old school space. So everybody has offices and everybody's 6 feet away from each other. It's a very old school bungalows and, ancient architecture in LA. Unlike a lot of the newer buildings where they have bullpens and, these massive open rooms like the Netflix offices or, the new Viacom offices. It's one giant floor of an office building and everybody's got cubicles, so you can't keep people separate in those environments. But our environment is safer than most, but we've been out for almost a year now. And
So, have you been able to get back on the lot to be able to get any of your other
there's a
files?
procedure to do that. Yeah, I've gone back a couple times and just picked up file boxes and some things that I needed. Grabbed a guitar or two that I, didn't
Yeah,
want to
baby.
be behind for that long. But we really have. There was quite a intro when everybody was trying to figure out how to work from home. I had to go buy a computer and a printer because I didn't even have a personal computer, because
Wow.
I work at the office, many hours a day. And when I come home, I try not, I have an iPad that I can answer emails on, but I didn't have a big computer set up at home. So I had to go buy all that and try to figure out how to make it all work. And that was
Wow.
difficult. And the first couple of weeks, everybody was kind of in shock and trying to get set up so they could actually function. And then after that, it was just like, we never have been so busy. And part of the thing is, we have a pipeline where we had a ton of movies that were ready to come out.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the ones that we couldn't release because the theaters were closed, we had to figure out how to get those to somewhere. So, we had two big films that were supposed to be out this past fall, and one of them is Without Remorse, and the other is Coming to America, the sequel.
Oh, the sequel, right?
And so, Amazon bought both of those from us, and they're coming out. Coming to America, I think, comes out the end of next week, and Without Remorse shortly after that. But then what we have to do is deliver all those component parts to the film and get everything signed, sealed, and delivered. And it's been a crazy amount of work.
It seems to me that with the protocols of a studio and the confidentiality of the content, that having to set up your own workspace at home was probably one of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome, because you can't just go across the lot and talk to production
Right.
or post or whatever is happening. And I'm assuming that this is the same for you, Devin, too, that it's all pipeline type of projects that were already in the can that were going through post, and
Right.
so you could complete these projects, and that's what kept it so busy.
Yeah, I wasn't a big jerk at first because, well, first of all, being a composer primarily, we're already like little hobbits living in whether it's a big room or a small room, composing music by ourselves. And we look up every day and go, oh, it's dinner time. We shuffle off and eat and come back and mix into the night. So because I do shows like, Running Wild and Naked and Afraid and a lot of crime shows that were already in the pipeline, it was really about that stuff had been filmed, and those shows had been shot. So it was really about adding music to those shows and figuring out how to get music to the editors that were now working at their houses. Kind of like what Dan's talking about, they're all running around trying to figure out how to get an Avid or an editing system to each one of these editors for shows that have already been produced. So it was a lot of logistical stuff. But for me as a composer, the music creation really never stopped. The only glitch happened, I think, as we started to do a new season, because
Right.
shows are filmed, released, and then a new season gets ready, and it's like, what state can we film in? And really, most of my shows went to Florida and Arizona. They just basically went to states that were allowing them to film. So I went from doing, a lot of international African different style music for the world music shows. We did a whole entire new season for Discovery that's all swamp Florida music, because break out your dobros, because that was the only state we could film in. So I noticed a big shift in like where they were actually filming my specific shows.
Right.
And Running Wild, that has the spinoff You versus Wild, which is on Netflix. They had the episodes filmed, they had to pause, and then they repackaged two different episodes together, and now it's an interactive feature film. And it was, again, a lot of the stuff, like with Paramount, they must have zillions of things they were thinking about releasing, and some stuff they were for sure going to release. And when you're in a period of like, hey, we can't film any new stuff, some of that old footage or that other films, like, oh, let's release that because it's actually pretty good and let's get it out. And I think the biggest shift has been some stuff got released differently, and the way we put the music in was different. But I'm still dealing with a lead editor. He's in his house instead of the edit bay.
Yeah.
And you know, we're zooming now. It's like he's actually playing me the cut. Go, hey, look at this right here. There's this ending right here. Can you add the sting and blah blah blah. In some ways, it was like a little bit more almost connected than it was before. With just like, hey, we're working on this thing. Can you fix it? And like, fix what? Send me the footage. So, you know, COVID's bad, and it's been a horrible situation. I think for me, the biggest thing is going to be, and even the PROs talked about this, is after a period of a year goes by for a lot of these TV shows, different than films, which can't film new product, there's going to be a dip. I actually had a show that was actually canceled that got still airing because it was such a good show. They couldn't film new episodes. They just reran the old episodes.
Well, you know what? That's one of the things in licensing that I realized is that we were getting requests for older shows and them picking up options or asking for, you know, new licenses altogether because the existing ones had run their course.
Right.
And they were, you know, what was everybody doing during the pandemic? They were watching television, you know, those, and it's just ironic to me that that was happening while we were getting paid less. And the fact that one of the biggest booms during, you know, this COVID period, at least for my business, has been advertising and being able to get music and advertising, because that seemed to be, you know, messaging changed radically, and they really had to do a lot to be able to address that situation. And having the kind of music that's, you know, I've made it through, I've overcome, something that gives you, you know,
Yeah.
that comfort of home, that solace, that, you know, it was just amazing having to source that type of music from our clients and from our partners. You know, Dan, did you have any projects that did not get released? I know you've got one coming in July, but wasn't that project that's coming in July supposed to have been released prior to
Yeah, we've
this
had
coming
a
out?
lot of things that were postponed, and you know, depending on how big the movie was, you know, some things, if it's a smaller canvas, you can release those on a streaming platform, and people still get a good experience out of it. But you know, if you've got a big blockbuster that, you know, like we have Top Gun Maverick, which
Yeah,
I've seen and it's been ready for a while. It's a fantastic movie. It's just fantastic, but you need to see it on the big screen. You really do,
Yeah.
because you know,
right.
it's Tom Cruise actually flying these fantastic planes, and you're like, that's not a stunt man. That's really him in the plane,
Uh,
and you really get that when you see it on the big screen. You know, and that movie is that's such an audience experience in a theater. You want people to get that.
And you know, the studios are releasing some product in theaters, but they're also doing a simul, you know, release on cable. You know, HBO Max, the, you know, other ones. Disney's doing a lot of that. Do you think that that's something that's going to happen for the future, or are we going to go back to original releases happening in the theater and then television as a natural progression? Or do you think this is just going to kind of be the new normal?
I think we're going to have to wait and see what happens. I know yesterday Paramount Plus, you know, was launched, and
Yes.
the big thing was they're going to put out Quiet Place 2 and Mission Impossible in theaters first, and then 45 days later it'll go to the streaming platform. Um,
that's actually I want to jump in there, Dan, because that really relates to, because we do film trailers, promo, ad type stuff, and one thing that seems like, because of the shift in the release, that the big, you know, the big guys are releasing their films, a lot of the quotes that we're being asked to meet, or just the references up front when we get asked for a brief, that's been something that's actually shifted greatly because of COVID, because they're not doing gigantic, enormous promotional campaigns for these blockbuster films. They're sort of, there's a feeling of like, well, we're going to release it in theaters, but it's probably going to go to one of the plus channels or a Netflix. So the promotional budgets are like, hey, just so there's a heads up, you know, if this one clears, you know, we're kind of working in a minimal budget, because those blockbuster budgets are sort of like in question right now, and there's a little bit of shift there.
yeah.
Would you say that the money for music is going to be greatly affected going forward, Dan, because of the experience of COVID and what it's meant to content creators like CBS, Viacom, Paramount?
I mean, our budgets have been challenged for a long time, just
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
as the other costs get so high and marketing expenses are so high, that music budgets have not gone up over the years. They've been pretty close to the bone for a long time, and composers are working. They're working hard for you know fees that were not as good as they were getting 5 years ago, probably.
well, and
But
I think that's why we're trying to fight against, requests from certain cable outlets that will remain unnamed, but wanting to buy out the performing rights, the back end rights, because truly, I mean, Devin, you can speak to that. That's, you live and breathe on that. And Dan, your music department, you're not just overhead, you're a revenue generating department, and that's of concern to you as well.
of course, yeah,
And that's
we push back hard on that, and I don't think that's good for the publishing business. It's certainly not good for us. It's not good for songwriters.
Right.
So we stand in the shoes of the artists when we're putting out music in our films and collecting publishing revenue and doing soundtracks. So I we're kind of very resistant to that trend from whoever's pushing that idea.
Yeah, my attorney Jeff Light, who's been kind of watching over me for 24 years, often will just say, "Hey, that's really fantastic, but for that budget, how can we work this out so it's more fair for the artist? Because you need the music, and we need your show, which is without naming networks and specific people." I don't think that's ever a bad conversation to have, to say, hey, how can we meet in the middle? Because we want to keep making music for you. We love being in business with Paramount or CBS or MGM or whatever. How can we make it where we can continue to keep our doors open, making cool stuff for you, and you guys feel like you're getting a fair deal? And I just think that, in another panel we spoke on a couple of weeks ago, I think it's always, whether it's the attorney, whether it's the artist, whoever the people are talking about the music, having an open, adult conversation about how to make it fair for everybody, and make it so everybody can keep the doors open and all the quality can be kept up super, super high. And, rates shifted up and down. I started 20 years ago, the budgets for TV shows and films, I mean, it was off the hook.
Right.
And it's not gone up since then. But I think there's opportunities. I mean, my library basically got started because Jeff Light would say, well, that's great for that budget. He should be keeping all the publishing rights. And that's how my Powers Music Group built, because there were some shows that wanted me to do music. The budget wasn't there. So we would make their show sound cool. We would do their themes. We would let them own the theme, because that's sort of an IP issue. But then the content was owned by me. And that only happened from asking. It wasn't like, oh, okay, I want to do your show. Here, take all my rights. So I think it's a conversation worth having. It's not an end all be all. But in general, I think over the COVID period, I don't know if it's used as a cudgel to get lower budgets, or it's actually they're working under lower budgets. Do we ever really know? And I think the main thing is to have a really good relationship with the companies you work with, and let them know you want to be in business with them, but then also, how can we make it fair, simply put?
Well, and Dan, you want to say something?
I was going to say that the one thing about COVID that's been, because we're back in production. I mean, Mission Impossible has been in production for a while now, and that was the first movie to get shut down. We had our whole crew in Italy, and they had to jump on a plane and get out of Italy.
Yeah.
Everybody bugged out of there when it was hitting in Italy, and they went back to production as they could, and figured out where it was safe to be, and that's an international location kind of project. So they were bouncing all around wherever they could, and obviously, lots of mini shutdowns and trying to keep the wheels on the bus is the trick with that. But the COVID costs have added a big chunk to every production budget, and we have, I mean, we have a whole COVID group and people, our safety group, that's trying to make sure our cast and actors are safe, our employees are safe, it's not, and the lot is open for productions, so they're keeping us off the lot because they don't want to interfere with, they don't want anybody the employees, coming on and spreading something around there where they could affect the production. So productions have tiers of access, and they're doing a good job of managing, testing and keeping everybody safe as they're doing that. But it adds a tremendous percentage to the budget of every show and every film now. So that's just a cost. We're just eating a big chunk of change on every project right now while we're during the pandemic time. So
I don't think there's any member in this ecosystem of music and content creation that isn't having to eat a bit of that COVID pie, if you will. Music's half the equation in any audiovisual production. It can tell the story all by itself. And I don't think that this industry has given us any less respect because the budgets have gone down as far as what we're used to, what we've enjoyed in the past. The one thing I can say is that music supervisors I've worked with, studios, production companies, when they have the money, they spend it. And when they don't have the money, they just don't have it. So if we're willing to work with them in good and bad budgets,
Yes.
we continue to work. So and as long as we are able to maintain the rights of our back end being unaffected by any pre or front end deal, it makes it a little more palatable for us to be able to work on price and circumstance with across the board. So, one of the things that I wanted to ask is, Devin, how do I don't know if you're like me, and I think, Dan, I already know that answer to this question. We can do more business in 5 minutes in a cocktail party than usually we can do in some hour-long, type of, group setting or something, how have you been able to grow your business knowing that you can't be in community and connect? Because that personal connection, those personal relationships are what help us be able to market ourselves. We're our best advocate. So how have you been dealing with that? How have you been able to reach out and connect? What kind of marketing or other personal endeavors have you kind of implemented?
Well, our VP of music, Carly, who
Yeah.
she's out there.
Hi, Carly.
Hi, Carly. She's out there emailing, and we're sending packages out for briefs, and we send the occasional custom guitar to people that are just our buddies and using our music. And we're old school. We sort of like stay in touch with people any way we can. We used to bring cupcakes and flowers and all that good stuff to build relationships with people we don't know. We're actually doing a new reel right now because we have Synapse trailer music, we have Big Vox records, and then I have the Powers music, basic, custom catalog. So for Synapse, we're doing a custom reel that's a motion PSD that has cuts of all of our music. So we're finding little ways to promote ourselves, because some people we've worked with for 20 years, other people are, who are you guys? So the who are you guys people were sending interesting promotional things out via email. I mean, I miss the parties. I miss going to the production music conference. I miss showing up at playbacks and all that. But I think, you need to put your thinking cap on and figure out how can we do things different. And this is back ending a little bit, but right at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a show on Amazon, and they wanted to have, it was called The Pack. And it had been filmed early, and it was Lindsey Vonn was the host, and they wanted to have one of the execs go, "We love the opening to La La Land. Can you recreate Another Day in the Sun for us with live orchestra?" And I'm like, oh, okay. We have strings and all that. We have 2 studios, 2 of my really good, best friends, co-producers on a lot of the music we do, have access to all the players. And I get on the phone with a guy from Amazon, and this is an example of what really did change. It's like, okay, you need to do it COVID safe. And I said, well, you realize if we don't have the orchestra all in the same room, you're not going to have that, a little bit of blending of the horns into the strings and everybody interacting with the drummer and the whole Frank Sinatra thing where everybody played live. So we adjusted. He goes, you have to do it COVID safe. So we did 2 strings at a time, 6 feet apart. We did 2 more strings, 6 feet apart, and it took us longer to do it. Did they give us a bigger budget? No, because I love Amazon and I love the EP, and we made it happen anyway. But it was a whole opening to the pack on Amazon. It was like a 3-minute open with dancers, and they shot it on 405. And I think there's been a lot of adaptation, but going back to what you said, Teri, I believe it's really important. Everybody's in this together. It's not like, oh, the composers or the publishers got hurt. We have clients we work with that we need to bend and make it work. We're all working together in this. It's like we're all trying to figure out how to get to the end of it and still have those friends, clients, new people that we've met through people. Because this business is all about relations. I did a show called Blind Date in 1999, my first TV show, 175 episodes for Universal. Almost every producer I work with currently now on TV was either an EP, an editor. Some of them were like assistants. One of my assistant, another head of NBC. It's like, so, and those people call you up and you go, yeah, I'll take care of it. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about the budget later. And you kind of have to get ahead of the curve of having it all be about money. But, back end and rights, we always want to retain that as smart publishing owners. But
Well, exactly. One of the things during COVID, I asked how you're building your business. For us, this is the first time in 20 years that I've been home this long. I mean, we all travel, right? And we're all out and making things happen. But one of the things it allowed us to do is we had a strategy for the company. And what we decided to do is take a hard look at where we're at. We're located in LA, but we have been eyeing Nashville. And people go, what did you do in your COVID vacation? And that's not putting a light on making fun of COVID, but it means we have that time away, and being home and being really much stagnant with respect to anything else that could really take our attention, like travel and events. And what we did is we came to Nashville and we opened our Nashville office. We're formally launching, thank you. We're formally launching on May 25th, but we are in our location here in Berry Hill. And it's kind of where all the studios are in Nashville right now, at least where it's happening. And what we've done is we have our administrative hub in LA, but our new headquarters will be in Nashville for business reasons. And we're now living between both cities. We built a home here. We were talking about that, Devin, that you almost pulled that trigger, and we look forward to you doing that and coming back. But so what that's been able to do is we've got a business hub in LA, and this is also where we do all of our pitching for film and television and the production side. But we now have a studio that we're outfitting, that we're going to be able to record new masters. We had our first writing session yesterday. It was so exciting. And I mean, the whole company was a buzz, and we were socially distant. People, we followed the protocol. And so in order to, make good use of the time that we had here at home, we were able to really start to build the other 2 custom music catalogs that we have, Real Witty Werks and Group Clank. And Group Clank's out of South Africa. We have a production and music production and post-production joint venture there with Blue Noise Productions out of Johannesburg and Jeffreys Bay, one of the #1 surf spots in the world. So we have a lot of people that are interested in going to our studio there. So it's going to be exciting. And with respect to the other little logo you see there, it says Live at Studio 507. We are in production of a video podcast that will be rolled out later this year. And it's all about music, culture, food, and highlighting new talent. And we really look forward to bringing that to all of you, and we'll let you know when we're ready to roll that out. But wow, that's what we've done along with sustaining the work for our current clients. And then one of the other things that I think is really important is during this time, it also allowed the work that we do in rights management, international rights management, on behalf of film and television. I'm on the joint project lead at CISAC, which is the Global Society. And we have during this time completed work on the Q sheet harmonization process, a new Q sheet that will be global so that all content creators will hopefully look at this as the approved format so that all of the music that's being created for film and television and adverts are going to be able to be disseminated on a standard form and practice with identifiers that are standard across the board. And just the earlier today, we had completed the new form for music and commercials that is being adapted and adopted by the Global Music Rights Society, and we're going to roll that out as well. So rights management, key issue for film and television and for adverts. And these are things that we've been able to really focus on during this time of being home, being locked down, not having the ability to do what we normally do. And I think, I don't know about you, Dan, the way that you work at the studio, I know that with our business, travel will come back. We will go to events. We will be in person. But I think the access to one another via these types of formats in webinars, I think they're here to stay. What's your opinion on that as a music community?
Yeah, I think it's an easy way to get people together in different parts of the country, certainly. And we used to do a lot of conference calls, and it is better than a conference call on one hand.
Now everybody wants to Zoom.
There is Zoom tedium though, and like today's my day at Paramount. I go 3 hours in a row, and I'm missing some of those right now, which hopefully they're not going, where is that guy? But there's so many people in there. I'm hoping they're not noticing I'm not there right now.
Well, you know what? We appreciate you coming on, and Tony couldn't do that, but you're our stealth guy. You're the
Well, and part of the hard part for me too is you just miss human contact, and work is not just about work. It's about and I'm a little ADD, and I jump out of my chair during the work day every 10 minutes, and if I have something to ask somebody, I don't email them if we're in the office. I run down to their office and stick my head in and ask the question, then run back to my desk. Electronic communications, where there's so much of it anyway. If I've got real human beings around, I'd rather just ask them face to face. So that's been the hardest thing to give up with all this, and really the lack of human contact. And I notice when I'm talking to people and doing deals, even if we're adversarial, there's that moment. So how are you holding up? And then people will tell you, oh my gosh, you're desperate to talk. People.
Yeah.
People now, of course, the lawyers that bill by the hour, they're always happy to talk.
Yes, you guys are.
I don't bill by the hour, so the faster I get off the call, the better for me usually. But this is a thing. People just need to talk, and they're stuck in here. I mean, I sit in here 12 hours a day, and when this is my music room this is a new house that I got to be close to work. As soon as I bought this house, I didn't go to work anymore. I was just here, and luckily I had this music room, which was my little home studio thing. Well, I'm in here all day long, but when I'm done, I'm not playing the drums or hanging out in here making music. I am in the house getting as far away from this space as possible, because I'm tired of being in here.
Well, you know what? I got so crazy. We built our new house, and we have an office in there, and my husband, that's his domain. I'm so glad to have this new office in Nashville, because I can come here and be semi-normal, and not have the dog barking, the doorbell ring thing coming. Yeah, like that, Dan, like that. Devin, I heard Trace Atkins yesterday on the news say, he was asked, how have you been doing with the pandemic as a creator, as an artist? You can't tour or you can't do anything. And he goes, okay, yeah, I can't tour. And it's all about the fans for us here in Nashville as country singers and artists. He goes, and I would say that that's true for all artists. He was saying, he goes, but I've been really busy. And he goes, and everybody I know has been really busy because everyone's in the studio.
Yes.
And he said, they asked him, so how can you do that in a COVID safe environment? He goes, uh, I sing in a vocal booth. He goes, I don't know about you all in that television studio. You all look pretty close to me, but we have a lot of studios in Nashville that we can be very safe. And he said, there is going to be a flood of content coming out once we're able to tour, once we believe that the right marketing campaign at the right time for these releases to be released and for them to tour on. And I can tell you, being in Berry Hill, I'm next to Blackbird, next to East Ira Studio, which is the former House of Blues, and a whole bunch of other amazing studios. Every single parking lot is full, and it has been during this whole time.
Yeah.
So I got to think that that's what's happening.
I have a theory about this. It touches on two subjects you talked about. First of all, we've never been busier. We're delivering more music and creating more music than ever for all of our producers and new producers. We've turned down shows because there's just too much stuff. And I think two things happen in a difficult situation like this. It does make it harder for newer people because when things are tricky, you go to your go-to people. You usually go to your go-to people anyway, but those few people that were getting ready to break through that sound pretty good, I think a lot of people go, you know what, let's just go for the slam dunk, and now's not a good time to take a risk. But for people that are musicians that are making music, I mean, I probably tracked more music in this last year with my team worldwide and locally than I ever have before. And the TV shows have been busier, and there's been more action going on. And I think a lot of it is the excitement of, we're going to get to this other end and we want to have a lot of stuff to release, whether it's live bands. There's, when this breaks, there's going to be tours by everybody on earth every weekend that you ever wanted to see. Bands you didn't even know were going to reunite are going to reunite. I mean, it's going to be pretty epic. But in the forefront of all of this, I think there's a very simple theory, and that is that adaptation is just super key. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. Of course, we're in the music business, we're publishers, we're writers, we're legal people, we're doing deals. But when you have a healthy outlook, you're able to go, you know what, this really sucks. How do I adapt and continue forward? And I think a lot of it's a mental attitude. I do miss the visceral feeling of like seeing somebody and giving them a hug and going, how are you doing? How's your mother? What's going on with your brother? Is he okay? Because we all have these personal stories about people. So I miss that. And I think we all want that back. That said, I have lunches here. We have a back patio and it's a big table and people come up with masks. We're 6 feet apart. We're developing a new show. We're on the verge of selling because I'm also an executive TV producer, among a zillion other things. So we figure out a way to get together, be safe. We just don't get the hugs. We don't get the high fives. There's less touching. I'm a tactile person. I think most musicians are. Like, I want to touch people and go, hey, how are you doing? And
no fist bump.
Maybe even a fist bump. I know at the NAMM this year, we were at the NAMM show in January 22nd, and it was like already there, and the entire Wuhan province had all the low cost Taiwan guitars on the bottom floor. And everybody's, shaking hands and fist bumped, and everybody got the flu after. Everybody was sick. And it's always like, oh, it's the Namthrax. So half of us were like, did we get the flu? Did we already get it? But I think, the two main things, I think figuring out a way to overcome is just key to success in a business. You're in the middle of this thing and everything's going perfectly cool. Everything's coming up roses. It's another day in paradise. Unfortunately, that's the moment. This is a pretty epic thing that happened, but there's always going to be something that's going to be a shift. Oh, our budget's changed. Oh, that show's no longer being produced. You lost your gig. So I think having a mental framework to be able to just say, you know what, I'm going to adapt. What's the next thing? How can I shift? How do I move to Tennessee? What can I do in my downtime? You know, I love that you moved to. I want to like come down to your place and write some tracks. And go, come
I
on,
can't wait.
let's
You're
get
welcome.
let's
You're
get
welcome.
busy.
Come
You
on
know,
in.
I got tons of friends there. You know, Jeff Silbar and I wrote a song for Leon Russell like 9 years ago, and we got some old John Lee Hooker tracks I've done with someone else who owns some masters. And during this downtime, it's on top of writing all these shows. There's all those projects that were sitting on my desk. You know, now's the time to call the estate. Let me get this done. Hey, Jeff, can we get this done? Jeff's been more busy now, my attorney, than ever before, because I think a lot of people are like, hey, you know what? Since I'm not here slamming away on 15, you know, projects and just staying in the normal thing, and a few things shifted over here to over there, that thing on my desktop that I've been putting off for 5 years, I think there's a lot of that going on. So I, you know,
Yeah.
I think if we can't find a way, you know, it's you know, it's silly to say it, but it's the lemons and the lemonade thing. Like, you got to figure out that. I think the people that have sort of been able to do that have continued on, and my heart goes out to some of the newer people. That's the hardest thing.
Yeah. That,
When
that's
you,
one of the things, Devin, that I wanted to talk about. You know, not everybody's in a situation where their business is well seated and they had pipeline projects and they were able to sustain themselves during this, you know, pandemic. As publishers, you know, our revenue went way down. And for those of us who work in the film and television area with respect to licensing or music supervision, that stopped automatically unless you had, you know, pre-existing licenses that got re-upped, or options got exercised. We got to see some of that revenue happen. You know, lessons learned with respect to COVID. I will say that as a publisher for film and television, you know, we have made sure that our revenue comes from multiple sources. Annuity revenue from royalties, licensing per project, retainer clients, you know, how we're able to, you know, claw from each one of these different areas of business to sustain us, because relying on just one area is not gonna sustain you. And also doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome is, you know, what Einstein says is, you know, insanity. You have to mix it up. We rolled the dice by opening this headquarters here, and we're really hoping that it breeds success, that we're able to create and find more clients, that, you know, we can do our international rights management, because that is something we do and very well. And then on the film and TV side, you know, having been the head of music at Fox Family Worldwide for 15 and a half years, and, you know, MGM before that, and Hemdale Film Corporation, and starting at a society at BMI, you know, in film and TV, you know, we're trying to figure out, you know, the best way that we're not going to be as caught off guard. We were lucky enough, and I know this is going to sound strange, we are lucky enough to be blessed with being hacked a year and a half ago. Because you know what that did for my business? We went to the cloud sooner than we would have. Naturally, for our business, we had maintained our own database out of security reasons. And now with what happened to us, and I mean, the FBI got involved, it was pretty crazy. And it was just an employee going on a site that they were able to get in, and they were 90% into encrypting our data. They didn't steal anything, and we didn't pay, and we had a backup, and we pretty much told them to go pound sand. But that was really difficult, because if you had anything on your desktop, you lost it. So a lesson learned with respect to COVID, within 30 minutes of being locked down, we were up and running, because we were already in the cloud. And the only thing we had to do is similar to what Dan's experience was. We literally had to move our computers from the office to our employees' homes, so that they would have access. Our phone system, internet phone system, you know, we can be anywhere. So there are these things that allowed us to continue to do business. Now, our partners in business weren't all up and running, because they couldn't in several respects. Dan, you couldn't go back to the studio. A lot of our production partners couldn't do that. So at least we were ready to do business, and we were ready to keep things flowing and going. until, COVID hit a few of our team members, myself included. And, that's another thing you have to overcome. And I just think learning how to be as nimble in business. And if I couldn't be here in Nashville or in our LA office, I know that wherever I go, I can flip that laptop open or go to that desktop at home, and I am business as usual. We also became 98% paper free.
Mm.
The other thing. And a tip I just want to say, the last kind of question I want to throw out there is, and I'll start, is, what kind of tip going forward would you give any of these? A lot of the people on this webinar, they own copyrights, they own record companies and publishing companies, and they represent artists. One of the things I want to find out from you, tip going forward, in how to emerge post COVID in a much healthier way business wise. For me, what we've done is we've engaged Variety Insight. This is a really good tip, because what they do, this does cost money, but we believe it's worth it. And Variety produces this insight report that lets you know what is happening in the area of film and television, who's doing what level and process that production is at, and who are the contacts. You can follow and understand who is, what productions are happening, everywhere, if you will, and be able to plan your marketing attack. I think it's an extremely useful tool. I get no kickback for saying this. I'm just saying that for us, it is a very important tool. And I would really if I were someone looking to promote my music to content creators, this is a way to know what is happening in our industry as far as production goes. Devin, what's your tip?
Well, I mean, I like the fact that you mentioned the word nimble. It's something I use a lot. And I think people that are getting into the business, whether a new publisher with a small library or a new artist that wants to get involved in TV shows or what have you, I think having a really broad portfolio, because I'm involved in trailers, vocal music, and production music. I often tell people, like, don't bet everything on one thing. Like if you're out there trying to get that big network show, I have huge epic worldwide trailer writers. Like, we haven't had a trailer done in a long time. Can I write for some of your TV shows? And other guys that are like that, like, I would never write for TV. I'm a trailer writer. I think framing yourself in a position, and it would be like investing in the stock market, and you're basically investing in your future. Look for various streams that you can get involved in. It doesn't mean it's the end all be all, but if you can get involved in a little bit of TV, don't just always go for big ad campaigns. Or if you're a trailer guy, don't always go for big ad campaigns. Maybe do some trailer music and some TV music. And if you are trying to be the only writer on a show, like, I need to have my show and see my name on the scroll of the credits. I mean, I don't have credits on most of my shows. They just don't even do that on a lot of shows anymore. So don't worry about that so much. Find someone you can team up with, so there's a little revenue coming in. So you're creating new relationships. It's just a relationship business. It
Right.
just is. Like, you can have the greatest music in the world. I tell everybody this. And if people don't like you and want to work with you or do a legal contract with you, they just don't call you back. They're like, hey, we used that guy once, or she was cool to work with, but man, it was a huge hassle with her attorney. I know Dan has been through this before. People tend to go to, it was so easy working with these guys. They're just a great team. We really love the music they delivered. It was a super easy deal. Let's call them up and have them take care of this. And I think we need to be aware of being nimble, having multiple streams that we can get involved in. And don't think it's not something you shouldn't do. You could do it for a while and it can make a little bit of money, and you could, keep the doors open, and then always look for other opportunities. And then also relationships, make it work. I mean, we all want to make things work. We want to be in there and going, hey, this was a fun thing. Let's do it again,
Dan?
So if you look at history and the end of World War I, and then the Spanish flu pandemic that killed 20 million people or more, what happened after that was they invented jazz, and we had the Roaring 20s, and everybody went buck wild for 10 years, and things were just absolute crazy, creative crazy. I think we're coming into the roaring 20s again, because people, when they come out of this, they're going to want to go to live music. They're going to want to go to bars and restaurants. They're going to want to hear a band in the corner. They're going to want to go to museum openings. I'm going to want to go to the opening of an envelope personally. You know, it's like, I want to get out. You want to go to movies. You know, our performance income dropped to nothing from foreign box office, and that's a huge chunk of our revenue as a publisher. Well, all that money went away. Well, as soon as the movie theaters are back, that's coming back. We know it's coming back. People are going to want to go to concerts. People are going to want to go do everything. People are going to need music more than ever before. And all these people who've been stuck at home or stuck just in the studio time with no touring, because the touring is a grind. It takes away from a lot of creative juices of people. You can't, if you're exhausted, you can't write a great song. You know, there's a lot of music that people have been bombing out there on Spotify or whatever, just, you know, and not waiting for an album, just putting out songs as they come out. People are going to be desperate for content. They're going to be desperate to get out and play. And I think everybody just needs to be ready. And in the meantime, you know, please, let's all get the vaccine so we can get this thing moving. Because
let's get our jabs.
You know, it works. The people that say, oh, I don't trust that vaccine. It's like, you can trust the vaccine. My 90-year-old parents have had it. You know, it's like, you can get it. And the sooner you can get it so that we can all get healthy and move on, because that's the biggest slowdown right now. But when we come out of this, it's going to be the roaring 20s all over again.
I agree.
I'm excited. I think so as well. And I think that you're going to see so much happen, not just live, but also online. I think our consumption of music is going to continue in this streaming age, where so much came online because of you know, COVID. So I think that it is brought yet another element of growth for our industry. And we can look at that in a real positive way. And so I do have some questions here. So if we can answer a few questions, Henrik, are we doing okay on time?
We are good as long as everyone is still okay with sticking around for a couple minutes. We are good to answer questions.
Okay, Devin and Dan, are you guys good for a few minutes?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Chloe has a question. She said, pre-COVID, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges faced by the production music industry? Then with COVID, how did these challenges shift, if at all? And are these are there steps that industry innovators are taking to face these challenges? I think that's a Devin question.
I mean, pre-COVID, the biggest, you know, challenge is always, you know, kind of what I was talking about before. Do you know someone that wants to use your music? Do you have a relationship with a network or a producer or the lead legal guy that just knows you're perfect for that show? It was always about that. And then post-COVID, it's keeping the relationships that you have, trying to build them, but then also, you know, when someone comes to me and goes, hey, you know, we got this trailer and da 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 da, and the rates are, you know, just be honest with you up front, the rates are going to come down a little bit. That's the moment where the rubber meets the road, and you go, hey, you know, I love working with Paramount. If you've got a new movie coming out and you're going to release it on HBO Max or, you know, some other plus streaming thing, and that's your rate, dude, I'm here for you. Like, I don't, you know, that is, I mean, is that a challenge, or is that you sort of stepping up to the challenge and like living in the challenge? I think that's what, if there is anything at all, that would be what I would say. It's like, and even some of the TV budgets, you know, the TV budget's like, hey, you know, we're going to do another 22 episodes and our budget came down because we can only film 14, and are you with us? And I'm like, dude, I'm with you.
You know, there's a question here. Are there webinars and workshops that newcomers can attend to learn the ropes? You know, there's a couple, and you're on one right now. Music Biz is fabulous, and we really appreciate them providing this forum. They have been educational across the board in every topic that you can imagine. And along with Music Biz, there's the Association of Independent Music Publishers. And there's also the California Copyright Conference. There's also, the Society of Composers and Lyricists. There's so many different ways that you can get networking within the music industry. And A2IM is another one. There's so many. So I think you need to look at networking within those groups to understand who the players are and get to know your industry, get to know who's making what films, what TV shows, who are the composers, who are the music supervisors, what kind of songs when you're watching TV. Do you ever make a mental note of the kind of music that you're hearing in a show? Always. Oh my gosh. I've even got my husband going, honey, they must have spent a lot of money for that song, huh? And I said, yeah, never enough though, especially when it's one of ours. When we got Guardians of the Galaxy, Come a Little Bit Closer is one of the copyrights that we luckily got placed in Guardians. And my husband made every comment on the sun because it's not only the montage, it was also the trailer music, lead song on the soundtrack, in merchandise, and also in a limited edition Doritos chip bag. They embedded a cassette player. When you press the button, our song came out. I mean, those kind of licenses, it took 2 years to get that, but we got it. And that was a fun thing, So I'm just saying that get to know the music that's being played, get to know who is making that music and who are the content creators, the filmmakers, the TV. You have to do your homework. If you're new, learn your industry.
To that comment, I'm just going to say this because there might be somebody young that's listening to this, and this is something Santana told me because I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was primarily a guitar player when I was young, but this goes across. Dan will know this, you will know this, and anybody that's hiring people will know this. Look at what's out there and try to have a thing. Have a thing that you do.
Yeah.
That figure out what it is that you can do that's your best thing and veer it a little bit away from what everybody else can do. Because when I first started the TV, nobody was doing guitar rock music. Seems like a simple thing now, but at that time, that was my thing. Although I'm known for a lot of different things now, when we do specialized albums or EPs, we look at what's out there and we aim at a thing that we feel nobody else is doing anything quite like this. So when people hear it, they go, ooh, that's a twist. And I'm sure a lot of the people that Paramount bring on, the film composers and the Hanses and the different people, they have a thing and you can go to them for that. But what isn't out there? It's the purple cow theory. How do I get in and do something different, stand out in the crowd of everybody else?
And you become a trusted source in that way. Our company, we have a vintage catalog and we have a 10,000 Cuban copyright catalog with Vista Social Club music. We have all these different unique things that pull people toward us. And then our newer work is, hey, we also have this shiny new song and new artist. And we'd like, for laughs and giggles for you to hear what's going on, that's new. And so that allows us to do that. And also what we represent, really broadcast television and production companies. And so not only do we administrate their catalogs, we're able to work with them on the creative side saying, hey, we can bring, value to this part of your business, the creative. We started as administrative and then we become a creative partner. And that has been, something that a lot of publishers in the film and TV sector have not really thought. They want to go licensing, but having that multiple source of revenue and ways we do business all around the same copyright. We're not trying to do too many things for too many people. It's all the same, IP, but it's how you interact with that IP and what your representation and your business is with that IP. So there's two other questions on here that people have asked, and I want to quickly say that to find the Variety insight, you have to go to variety.com and they will have it on their website. The other thing is about the cue sheet harmonization. You go to cisac.org, that's CISAC.org. And all you have to do is put in the search column, cue sheet harmonization, and you will find all the information. And if you don't, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat. And I'm happy to help you find any one of those, or if you have a question after this. So I want to close by asking you guys one last question. And that is, and this is just a fun thing to do. Dan, Devin, what project are you excited about right now? Start with you, Dan.
We just got our Paramount Plus thing launched yesterday, so that's really fun. And the fact that we have a bunch of new creative executives, and we have animation, we have our Paramount Players group, we have Big Paramount, we have Paramount TV, which has been booming through all this time. We've got a ton of shows out there, and we're doing a lot of things for the streamers, and I'm just looking forward to getting back inside a movie theater and seeing some of these movies on the big screen again. But in the meantime, there's no shortage of great content to watch, so it's really fun.
That's awesome. Devin?
For me, it's actually something that's happening today that some of my best friends and team workers did. Simon J and Luke Strethla, two of my partners, have been doing the Good Day LA thing, which is a big Australian event that they throw every year. And this year we all did a big sing-along with Colin Hay on The Land Down Under. So you can go look that up, Good Day LA. It's actually going to be at 4 o'clock today and see it. And there's like Noemi Watson, Hugh Jackman, and like there's all these people that have that relationship with Australia. And there's like a big sing-along at the end. And I love these specialty projects because I've done the Oscar red carpet and all those kind of things. But this is real special because these two guys are super talented, and they do a lot of the music for Big Vox, the vocal music that you've heard. Which I'm really excited about. So the Big Vox music stuff and these kind of specials that we do are really near and dear to my heart because I was a recording artist on Universal. I was a rock singer opening and playing with Radiohead and Smash Mouth and Foo Fighters, and that's my background. So I never even knew when they said you want to write for a dating show. I was like, oh, I don't even know. But then back then in 1999, I won't go into it, but the budgets they had, I was like, okay. And I owned the publishing and the writing on a show that aired 4 times a day, 5 days a week, wall-to-wall music. It was in prime time. It was like, and even my attorney said, I think you'll earn a few bucks. And it was like, we were shocked. So that's how I got into TV. But I'm excited about it. Good Day LA, Big Vox Records, Synapse trailer music, and all the new upscale stuff we're doing. TV stuff I love. It's my nuts and bolts. But you can see I'm diversified. Trailer, vocal music, TV
Exactly.
music. I publish some I create for, not right now for Paramount, but I have in the past, MGM and other networks. And I think keeping an eye on just being excited in general about what you're doing is important. It's infectious, has a visceral element, not only in your communication with people, but also in the music you create.
And I think that we're seeing that there's so many projects out there. There's business for everyone.
Yes.
And if you want it, you'll get it. And I just want to close with respect to what I'm excited about. I'm excited about Real Music Works, new headquarters in Nashville. I'm excited about Live at Studio 507 and our video podcast that's coming up, and our catalogs, Real Witty Works and Groot Klang. I can't say it in Dutch. The guys in South Africa are much better than I am at pronouncing that. And we've got more things that are coming up as well. So I'm just really excited about business and that Roaring 20. Yeah, I'm all over that, Dan and Devin. I'm feeling it. And I think all of us will see a brighter day forward. And I want to thank Music Biz for having us. And I want to thank our 2 panelists. Dan, thank you so much for playing hooky today and joining us. And and Devin, thank you so much for stepping in. It's been wonderful. And Henrik and Aaron and Portia and Nicole, all our friends at Music Biz, thank you so much for having us.
Dan, Devin, Teri, thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedules. It was great having you here. And thanks to everybody who tuned in and participated. Looking forward to welcoming you to future webinars, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
All right, guys. See you later. Have a great day.
See you later. Thanks.
Get back to work, Dan.
I will.